For those of you who are here, thank you for showing up a little bit early. My name is Matthew Nugent. I'm the host for this call. I'm from the West Point class of 1996. We are very fortunate to have Lieutenant General Mike Flynn here with us today. So I'm going to give a little preface here. We'll welcome to our VIPs. By way of disclaimer, we're a nonpartisan group, which means we have people from both parties and different views. For this commander's call, we'll focus on what unites both parties, a strong national defense, specifically what relates to West Point and other service academies. Now I give you to the MacArthur Society President, Major General Paul Vallely. Sir, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Matt. We're very happy and to welcome General Flynn as our guest speaker today. But what I'd like to do to kick this off before General Flynn comes on is a quick moment of silence and prayer for Charlie Kirk, Erica and his family, and for our country. Just a slight moment of silence, please. Great, thank you very much. Joe Flynn, it's just a privilege and honor to have you on the MacArthur Society. We're new. Some think we're trying to fence off against the Association of Graduates. We aren't. We're trying to just be a society that represents the graduates. And we have a lot of plans, that's for sure. So anybody that can join us and help us get along here and make things positive for West Point will be greatly appreciated. But General Flynn, you know, a great American, great patriot, great war fighter, been through a lot, that's for sure. He's seen it all, what's happened in Washington over the last several years. And he doesn't need any more than that as an introduction. But Joe Flynn, thank you so much. We'll probably take about 15 minutes, Mike, if that's okay, and then a Q&A after that, and stay as long as you'd like, and then we'll proceed with the rest of our program. So it's a privilege to introduce Lieutenant General Mike Flynn. Mike, it's all yours.
Appreciate being here with everybody. I very much appreciate and am honored to be part of, this conversation, and frankly, a lot of others that I am blessed to be part of. And just for those that are on here, some I know, many I don't know, and maybe get a chance to meet one of these days. I am actually in Washington, D.C., just to give you a little bit of context of sort of what I'm doing. So I'm in Washington, D.C. I have an office in Washington, D.C. since probably the last 4 or 5 months, purposely to be here because of some of the things that I'm involved in. And they all have to do with essentially national security. I do meet regularly with Pete Hegseth. I met with him a couple of times, actually. I met with him as recent as about a week and a half ago, and it's one-on-one, and I'll leave it at that. I meet with regularly with Tulsi Gabbard, and I'm in touch with Marco Rubio and people over in the White House. So you don't always have to be inside to be effective. And that's the way I am trying to operate these days. There's a lot of noise about, people in or out or doing this or that. It's really comes down to relationships and leadership. And it does come down to what is it that you're trying to, help, in this case, the president in the United States try to achieve. I will tell you that I do not agree with everything that the president is doing. I've been very clear about that. I do believe that we're in the very early stages of World War III. I believe that. And typically, you think about wars that break out that are big, and this has to do with the MacArthur Society. It certainly has to do with leader development and our future, not only as a nation, but those that we are, that we're supposed to help, which is the ones that come, behind us, right? And that's why I'm very honored and privileged to be part of the military academy's board of visitors. It's an interesting place for me to be these days. But like when we look at the world just in general, Russia and Ukraine, that the signs for that particular major regional conflict are not going in the right direction. And make no mistake about it, that there's been a big misnomer that this thing started underneath when Biden came into office. The initial attacks by Russia into Ukraine were on the 28th of February of 2014 during the Obama administration. And for those that followed it closely, that was right there on the heels of the Maidan Revolution, which essentially the tactics for the Maidan Revolution is essentially what the Obama administration applied here in the United States of America. So people can ask me questions about that or anything else. The other thing is the situation in the Middle East is a total mess, despite what the president talked about yesterday, and many documents that will be signed. Some of these countries and groups will sign them, and they'll smile, at you, and then they'll stick a knife right in your forehead. They will not stick a knife in your back. They won't wait for you to turn around. So I'm circumspect, I guess, on the situation in the Middle East and the direction that that's taking. For those that haven't been following it closely, Russia just signed a major nuclear energy deal with Iran, and don't kid yourself about how the Russian economy is in the toilet. And I mean, they just signed another major deal with India, another major deal with China, another major deal with Iran. I mean, this is I call it the unholy alliance. So, and then of course we have all the other likely suspects. We've got the situation down in Venezuela, nuclear capable North Korea. So that's just kind of and there's others, of course. We did, as part of an organization that I am part of, we did write a national security strategy, because we haven't had one since 2017. So when I came and took over a group here in Washington, D.C., I said the first thing we're going to do, and the person that helped me write it was a guy who worked in the Pentagon and worked over at the National Security Council, who wrote strategies, plural. So we've written one. I've handed it out to members of Congress. I handed it out over in the White House and gotten it over to certainly over to the Defense Department and into parts of the State Department, and certainly over to the leadership of the IC, the intel community. The number one threat that is stated in that particular national security strategy is none of what I just talked about. It is the internal threat by various isms that have infiltrated into our country for decades. And, that was one of the reasons why Pete Hegseth pulled everybody in today, because we're not talking about a couple of people at the top or a few civilians in the Office of Policy or something. We're talking about tens of thousands of uniformed military and many military leaders who I guarantee many in that room today were squirming in their seats, because they know who Pete was talking about. So we have a problem. And that problem has infiltrated down into our country. I mean, my last 4.5 years was going around the country, and probably almost 150 cities in the United States, mostly mid-sized and small towns, trying to change school boards. Okay, because I use this phrase, local action has a national impact. And school boards is because of the takeover of the education department, which President Trump said he was going to eliminate during the campaign, and they just refunded it again. So the Department of Education needs to be shut down. Linda McMahon's a great person and a great leader, actually, but we just funded the Department of Education again. And most people forget that the Department of Education was created by Jimmy Carter. The education system is so broken in this country, and I won't dive into that. I can answer questions on it and give you some ideas about how challenging it is. But for counties around this country, a little over 3,100 counties, we were only, right now, we're upwards of we were somewhere between 200 and 225 school boards, because they're at the county level, that were able to get inside of and change and overturn to at least become relatively more conservative, right? Not totally, but relatively more conservative. So at least they would check on the kinds of books that were being given and the kinds of things that were being taught to children in public schools, never mind charter and private. And all you got to do is know that how broken our system is, and see the rise of homeschooling nationwide, really. And then the homeschoolers don't get a real break. I mean, some of them get it, but this is everything about the security of our country. So the number one threat that we presented to our government, and we'll see what plays out, because I know Office of Policy over in the Defense Department has a draft defense policy, a defense strategy that's coming out. The rest of the government will have bits and pieces of ideas and policies and directions, but there's no set strategy from the top. Still hadn't been crafted yet. I don't know what they'll end up doing, but they have one in hand that they can use, that's for sure. I would just offer, and maybe in a couple of minutes, where I think we're at. I think where we're at is, I think that we have lost a lot of momentum. I think this administration has lost a lot of momentum. And President Trump, I'm one of his biggest fans, but like I said, I don't agree with him on everything. When President Trump does this, he signs a document and he, does this at the Resolute desk and shows everybody, some new executive order, and he has, his executive order is, one of his staff writers there will, give an executive summary of what that executive order is about. The problem is, and everybody on here that has served a day in the military knows, what gets checked gets done. And in a military unit, if the commander's checking on it periodically, believe me, it'll get done. The challenge is once one of those executive orders is signed off by the President of the United States, he turns it over to whatever, to the secretaries and to the agencies, activities, commissions, and the departments that we have inside of the government, which is large and too large. And it's kind of like, okay, execute. And as happens with in giant bureaucracies, which most of the people that are running them now have no experience running large organizations, never mind large bureaucracies. They don't execute them. There's nobody executing those, right? I mean, there's still military organizations as of a couple of months ago that still did not have the chain of command pictures put up. So that just gives you, that's like 2 months ago. Okay. So, that's in the military. So if you think that the military is going to respond to the commander in chief the way that they should, the way that they, in many of the experiences that some of you that are on here have had, that's not the case. It's just not the case. So, you expect in a sort of a white shoe bureaucracy where you don't have a lot of military, that you tell somebody something, you tell them, you give them an order, let's say you give them a directive, you tell them, hey, I need you to have this done. You almost expect them to come back with a white paper with 15 reasons why they can't. But that's happening across the board right now. When I go into very, very senior people's offices to conduct, some sort of meeting, and I don't, I do it, when I'm here in Washington, D.C., and I am told that they cannot trust anybody outside of their office. I'm like, well, why don't you get rid of them? Just get rid of them. If you can't trust them, why are they there? Right. So, and it's, again, will provide my best advice and assistance and influence that I can. But we my sort of last message to you all before I turn it over to some questions I tell this to every single person that I speak to, and I've been speaking to a lot of people around this country at many levels, 10 or 10,000, doesn't make any difference, that we are in a place right now where we could lose this country. We're not one generation away anymore, folks. We're one presidency away. And this presidency has a very short time, right? And like I said earlier in my comments, I think we're losing, we've lost some momentum because of one big thing that does matter is elections, right? And, like we always say, elections have consequences. But actually, if your elections are not fair, if our elections are basically, if inside of our elections we have foreign interference, which we know now we do because the current director of national intelligence has publicly stated it during a public forum inside of a cabinet meeting. For those that missed that, Tulsi Gabbard specifically said they have discovered foreign interference in our elections. Okay, so now it's what does it mean, and then what do we do about it? And there are some people working very hard, trying to work with the administration and with the Department of Justice and others to try to correct some of that, because for federal elections, which are every 2 years, right? We can't have foreign interference in our elections, and yet we still do. We know we do. That's part of the reason why we have a flotilla off of the coastlines of Venezuela. Okay, it's not just because of the drugs; it's because of what we know and what has been presented to the president about Venezuela. It's not just Tren de Aragua or Cartel del Sol or cartels being designated foreign terrorist organizations. It's also now it's about their influence globally in, at least from what I have seen, north of 30 countries that use their capabilities. And that means that they can decide the outcome of an election, to include the United States of America. And we just never, these are not conspiracy theories. These are things that actually, there's hard evidence, there's factual evidence, there's people that are working on these problems to try to fix these. So taking it back down to earth, to, West Point and, United States Military Academy and the great cadets that are there trying to get the best that we have. I don't see West Point as a place to, it's not just to teach a new leader new things and ideas and get them ready for war in the immediate. It's also to create leaders for the future of our country, because there are institutions that still matter, and the United States Military Academy, Annapolis, Air Force Academy, and there's others. Mass Maritime Academy. I have great legacy there too. And other academies, Citadel, and other places that, Texas A&M with its great ROTC program. There's some places where leaders are still created as long as we make the decision to teach them about leadership and to teach them about the things that matter in life and not matter to one segment of our population. So, Paul, I'll stop there, and I'll stay for some questions here for another 10 or 15 minutes. I don't know how long you guys got there.
Yeah, that's great, sir. We'll take all the time you got. Paul, did you want to ask the first question?
All right, good. Mike, the question goes to the internal threats in America and the reluctance of many of these left-wing governors and mayors to support trying to eliminate the threats in the cities like Portland and so on. In your opinion, are we on the right track there? What do we have to do to make sure that we rid crime within our cities?
I think this is one of the seminal moments in U.S. history that we are facing right now, because the media is going to push back, and then governors and mayors are going to push back and say, how dare the president of the United States, send in forces to quell, and I mean, we're not talking about riots. We're talking about physical abuse and attacking federal law enforcement officials trying to do their jobs. And so the president of the United States has a responsibility to not only protect and defend, but also to preserve. He's the only one that takes that and uses that word in his oath of office. None of us on this Zoom call have had to use that word. Only the president of the United States uses the word preserve. So they're all going to push back. I mean, the short answer really is that there is a creeping and infiltration of communism into the United States of America and into the political component of the left. I mean, if you don't know about me, which is insane that that means you haven't been paying attention. And I grew up as a Democrat, right? I mean, I grew up as a Democrat in a Kennedy era of John F. Kennedy. My mother was a big Democrat person in the Democrat Party. She was a head of the pro-life movement for the Democrat Party. Okay, at a time when they still believed in life. So I mean, I don't want people to talk to me about, I'm this conservative right-wing guy. No, I love this country, and what I see exactly what the Chinese and exactly what the communist movement of America has done and decided to do years ago, decades ago, is to infiltrate into all aspects of our government. And they're all over the federal government. I mean, they're all over the place. And, the Democratic Socialist Party of America. I mean, God help Tulsi Gabbard trying to rip out parts of the intel community that are just socialist. I mean, they're just socialist. I mean, caught dead to rights on Zoom calls talking about how they're going to subvert the United States. I mean, it's just nuts.
Goodness.
So we have to have the president has to be smart. He's got to be shrewd. He's got to be constitutional. But he's got to use the authorities in order to be able to do the things that he needs to do to not only protect and defend, but to preserve.
Thank you, sir. And we got another question here. And folks, if you could please send a message to the administrator so I can read your questions. We have a next question from General Rod Bishop. Glad to have a fellow conservative, quote unquote, Rhode Islander on. Given your meetings with Secretary of War Hegseth, do you think he or the Department of War really understand that DEI is not dead? We won't rid our military of an ideology that has been, quote, marching into our institution for decades, unquote, in a few months. It takes follow-up, as you have indicated.
Yeah, I think that he knows it's going to take quite a while. And this is where an organization like you all come in, okay? So I've always said, it's like people come to me and go, can't Trump do this? Can't, Hegseth do that? Can't Rubio do that? And it's like a leadership lesson I learned a long time ago from a great general by the name of Jim Lindsay. Some of you might know. And he said to me as a lieutenant, he was a corps commander who grabbed me on the streets of Ardennes one day, and I was doing something wrong, and he just said, what is it that you can control, right? And I said, I don't know, I can control me, in my platoon, right? And he goes, okay, well then take control of it. And he goes, don't worry about what you can't control. And it's like, so does Pete understand it? Absolutely. That's why he pulled them all in. Trust me. He pulled them all in because that was not just about, a rah-rah speech. That was about culture. He recognizes that the culture has a problem inside of the military. And so they needed to hear that from him, right? Because, all of you been through chain teaching. I mean, are we going to be able to chain teach our way away from DEI, right? Because DEI is a form of Marxism, period. Whether you want to believe it or not, believe me, it doesn't matter. Go study it. Yeah. So we cannot have these kinds of things. But my bigger point is, and as I tell to everybody in the country, that people have got to start realizing that all of us have to serve as citizens. We all have a responsibility to serve. I mean, I'm talking to people who have served this country and get that, but not everybody has. And that's what the American people need to start realizing, that the American people need to start serving this country in different ways, because otherwise we're going to lose it. And we're going to lose it quickly. not one generation, folks. We're one presidency away. If the left gets back in power, I mean, if you didn't hear what Jeffrey said the other day, the ranking member of the Democrat Party in the House of Representatives, you didn't hear what he said the other day. It was basically a threat, and I know I'm on that target list. I don't. I've already been through that ringer. So, I mean, but this is what we're up against. This is not like a Democrat and a Republican Party, and the Democrats have better ideas or the Republicans have better ideas. We're well past that. We're well past that. Ronald Reagan warned us about that, and here we are.
We believe you, sir. And given what you said, all that you said, how do you feel the Duty Honor Country Commission plays into this, and how does the Secretary of War feel it would be part of his strategy to reform the service academies?
Yeah, well, I mean, it always starts with leadership, right? It always starts with a good vision and clear objectives. I will tell you, so it's for this group, so because I've met with Tony Tata a couple of times now, actually, and Tony's an old friend. He and I served as battalion commanders in the 82nd a long time ago, and I handed him the Duty Honor Country Commission report, went through it with him. And as well as some other things, did the same. In general, I was much more wave top with Pete Hegseth, but I know he received it. And in it, it's not just what we're doing about West Point. And I know that that's kind of the topic of sort of a group like this, but it's about the whole thing, right? I mean, so it's about everything that we do. So I think that the right people have it. I will tell you that in the conversation I had with Tony and Secretary Hegseth at the same time, together, the Tony Tata's early research of the office that he has now responsible for, which is personnel and readiness for the department. He couldn't find back 25 years. He went back 25 years and couldn't find 25 years worth of anything that dealt with the kinds of issues that are addressed in the Duty Honor Country Commission report. I mean, so that means that USDPNR has basically stayed out of the things that they are responsible for, which is personnel readiness, health readiness, logistics readiness, readiness, right? And then you have other components within the department that that you go and grab, but that's the office that's supposed to be responsible for personnel and readiness. And for 25 years, it's been, frankly, not doing its job. And so good enough for Tony for recognizing that, stating it. And I do believe he's going to get after it. And his eyes have been opened up, I know, in the last couple of months on things that aren't happening. I think the driving force has been groups like this. Because it's like, don't be shy, right? We cannot be shy. It's like, the squeaky wheel or whatever, right? So don't be shy and let's, we have to, we not only seize the objective, you then got to fight through the objective. You can't just say, like I said earlier, here you go, everybody, here's a newly assigned executive order. Well, what gets done gets, what gets checked gets done. And now Trump needs to go out there. Pete needs to go out there. And believe me, he's not going to just state something today. I know that he is going to go check, and I know that, and there has to be some changes. There has to be some changes. We cannot keep going the way we're going right now with the leadership.
Sir, as many times as I've heard you say, "Get out there, get it," we still need to hear that. We, the MacArthur Society, have had an impact at West Point, and our sister Service Academy alumni. The Stars and the Calvert Task Group, we're all doing great. We have so many questions coming in, sir, and we have limited time with you. And thank you for your encouraging us. We really
I'll try to be shorter than that.
Do appreciate that. How do you feel about this? Is from Kevin Peterson, USMA class of '80, retired DEA. How do you feel about Comey being finally indicted after he sets you up? This coming from a 27-year retired DEA special agent and USMA 80 grad.
I think for all of us, it should be heartbreaking. Okay, not that he got indicted, but heartbreaking for where our country is at. Okay, wow. This to me is heartbreaking. I mean, the United States of America is supposed to be this beacon of light, right? I mean, God, if you just think about, but there are people in our country, and there are definitely people in our government that don't see, that they think that our Constitution is just an old piece of paper. And it needs to be changed. I mean, I'm serious. I've had these conversations with very senior people in our government while I was still in service, which is over 10 years ago now, right? So it is absolutely heartbreaking that a guy of his stature, who was the Deputy Attorney General for the United States of America, never mind the Director of the FBI, and he served in other capacities in government, that he's gonna probably go to jail. I mean, sadly, I mean, they'll fight it and all that, but we'll see what what happens. But the evidence, having gone through that process and seeing no evidence and making the decisions that I made based on the protection of my family, but now knowing the evidence that has been presented, this is a terrible place for our country to be. And you're going to have a lot of people on the the left that are going to say, oh, this is just Trump's retribution, right? I mean, it's not. We've got to hold people accountable for the damage that they're doing to our country. And like I said, it is absolutely heartbreaking to me that we are in this place right now. I wish we weren't, but we are.
Sir, I'll get a couple more questions if I can. This is from Vicky Manning, Restoration of America. Do you think the USMA Board of Visitors, which you are one of them, sir, is making an impact on making sure DEI curriculum and staff are eliminated at USMA? Before you answer, sir, for anyone here, if you have not read the article that we published about General Flynn's first visit to the Board of Visitors, it was amazing. So if you haven't read that, please read that article. But sir, what type of impact do you think the new board members are making?
Actually, a positive impact. I mean, I'm not appointed by the Secretary of the Army or the Secretary of Defense. I'm appointed by the President, and I talked to him specifically about it because he asked me a couple of different times. And the first time I said no, I'm not interested. But the second time he asked me, I said okay, but I'm going to be, I'm not going to be a wallflower. I'm just not. It's not my style. Anybody that's ever known me or worked around me knows that I'm not going to stand there and listen to stuff that I believe is not to standard. And like I said, there's a standard for tying your shoes, tying your boots, for wearing your headgear in the military. So there's a standard for everything. And DEI does not meet that standard, or these woke policies. I mean, 26 degrees in West Point you can get. I mean, like I said in my time there, go to the University of Rhode Island if you want to get a degree in basket weaving. You go to West Point, or you go to Annapolis, or you go to these military academies to learn about warfare. I would prefer that you take like a SAMS curriculum that I went through, and you put a lot of that right into West Point. I mean, teach these young minds how to be war fighters, because believe me, if you learn about war, you're going to learn about leadership.
So you talked about war fighters. The United States is unmatched at killing the bad guys. But when it comes to killing bad ideas, we've been swamped. Our enemies, we don't know how to kill bad ideas. We haven't trained our troops and our leaders how to kill bad ideas. What are your thoughts on what we can do to train our troops and leaders especially how to recognize Marxist ideas, subversive ideas, and then kill those bad ideas?
So Rumsfeld came out and visited us in Iraq, and it was a very small group, three of us. Right, I was the J2 at the time, J3 and the commander, and Rumsfeld and a couple of his minions. And we told him, everybody, we had seen his agenda, and everybody was showing him, gazillions of slides, right? We showed him one slide, and we basically told him that, essentially the conversation that we had, he was really pissed. He was really pissed about it initially until he calmed down. And we told him that, if you told us to come to this war and you were not coming home until you won, we would have fought it differently. We would have prepared differently. We would have resourced differently. And if we weren't going to come home until we won, we wouldn't be here we wouldn't be here now. And that was like, that was like, I don't know, however many years after the war, 3 or 4 years after the war. And that's the way we fought wars that we actually won. And that would have been back in World War II, against Nazism and imperialism. I mean, so we have not done a good job and now I'm talking about military officers. So if we just continue to accept that we're going to go on these deployments, like we go to JRTC, we go to war like we go to JRTC. I heard a Force Com commander state it like that. And I about went through the roof. I was a colonel, and I had spent 2 years at JRTC as an OC, and I spoke up during that meeting. I was a Force Com commander, and that was at Fort Bragg, and I was so upset. And I said, "Sir, I said, with all due respect, you got to be kidding me. We've got people that are dying. We had, Marine forces that had already been killed. We had some soldiers that had already been killed. I just couldn't understand why somebody that, but when we talked to Rumsfeld about that, he got all upset because, he was making these decisions. And then he calmed down. He goes, I understand what you're talking about. Well, but that's not how we fought. So therefore, we ended up retreating from Afghanistan, and never mind going back in history to Vietnam and other wars, but we retreated in Afghanistan, and the election that's about to come up in Iraq will go to Iran. Okay, the leader, the guy that's running for president in Iraq, it's already owned by the Iranians, but it will be solely owned by the Iranians after this next election in Iraq. So, I mean, you kind of say to yourself, what are we doing here? Right? What are we doing here? And so as a military leader, this is what I brought out in that, and I'm going on here, and I know that. So I'll hang with you guys for a bit here, but this is what I was bringing out to those cadets during the meeting at West Point. I said, you have an obligation to speak your mind. And if you don't feel like you can speak your mind when you're asked, like by some commander that goes, is there anything else anybody's got to say? If you don't feel, strong enough to speak your mind about something that you feel that is wrong, or like you don't clearly understand, so my objective is just to go out there for 6 months, and do what I can do and then come home. I thought our objective was winning.
Yeah.
Right?
On that line of thinking, sir, here's a great question from Air Force Brigadier General retired Chris Mookie Walker. Secretary of War addressed the general officers, field officers today. The speech reminded me of Patton's address to the Third Army in World War II. Secretary of War invited the senior leaders who are disturbed by what he said to do the honorable thing and resign. I think some may resign, but also I think some will remain to slow roll or thwart the wishes of the national command or authority. What are your thoughts on that, sir?
I totally agree. I mean, I think most of them are going to sit there and go, they're going to kind of quietly go, well, that's not me. That's not me. Well, bullshit. It's all of them. It's all of them who accepted it, So let's not kid ourselves here. I actually, this is a group that has enough, probably a network of some of these people that are still there, and tell them, look, if it's time to go, go. Don't, when somebody says, well, I'll just, I can do more if I stay in and I can fight the system. I can fix the system from within. It ain't going to work. It doesn't work that way. That means that you have just given up some of your own personal standards. So, we have all been taught about standards. My father was a sergeant in World War II in Korea. And before I went off to my first assignment, he grabbed me and he goes, you're gonna run into people that are gonna say, well, this is the way we do it here, right? Because my father was an old master sergeant. And he goes, when somebody tells you that, there are people, he basically said, if they tell you that, they say this is the way we do it here, he said, your first question should be, well, what's the standard? Tell me what the standard is and show it to me. Show it to me in writing. Okay. And I learned that from him, because the people that come to you and say, well, this is the way we do it here, they're the ones that you need to get rid of, or you need to be very careful of, because those are the ones that are slacking or not doing the things right. We have flag officers, generals, and admirals. I mean, let's face it, folks, the number 2 of the Air Force is going to go to prison, for 25 years, some number of years for bribery. Okay. I mean, we still have, and I know we're talking mostly Army here, but it's across the board. It's across the board.
Here's a question in a different frame, is from Mike Edelson. What's keeping us from having a national security strategy? And how much difference is there between your NSS draft and what the administration is developing, sir?
Well, there's nothing keeping us from having it except somebody's got to think, and then they got to write, and then they've got to then take it and implement, right? So um, I don't know what they're going to end up with. I couldn't tell you. I can't put a finger on anybody that's actually sitting down and writing one right now. I do know that Pete Hegseth has directed his policy team to come up with a defense strategy, and it's over in one of the FFRDAs, I guess they call them, one of the think tanks over that the and honestly, some of what I've seen in it is not. Well, I wouldn't recommend it. Some of it's okay. Some of it I wouldn't recommend. But you got to have a strategy. You got to have a vision, and and the president's got to implement it, and then he's got to direct it. To make sure that people execute it. Right. I mean, we do have all these documents because those documents do matter, right? They do matter in time because it provides direction for a government that has been a bit directionless. And I'm not just talking about the Trump administration. I'm talking about our sort of directionless government. I mean, like the last one that we've seen is 2017. And when I saw that, I was like, well, let's write one. And so, and I can give you a website. I think I'll get you a website where you can
We
find.
love that, sir. Thank you for doing that. I mean, it's the things that a lot of us don't think about. This is from Scott Field, West Point class of 73. You touched on maintaining momentum and accountability. Pragmatic question here. Has anyone looked at the NSC as the whip crackers in holding cabinet level agencies accountable? Eisenhower's NSC was somewhat like a plans op shop. He issued plans and then held periodic meetings to do the finger pointing drill and get status reports.
Yeah. So yes, I think that's why that sort of element around the president, it was created. Reagan had one that too. It was sort of he had sort of a second shadow cabinet actually, and they were like his eyes and ears that would go out, and do things. But again, our government since 9/11, I can tell you, our government has multiplied by at minimum, on average, five by times five. Okay, our government has since the 10th of September of 2001 until now, all government agencies, activities, commissions, departments multiplied by five the size. So that just gives you something. In the Department of Defense, for example, at the end of the Cold War, in the late 1980s, where we had our largest military since World War II. We had 500,000 combat forces over in Europe, as an example. So in 1990, the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, which is really the chief operating officer for the Department of Defense, had 4 assistant secretaries of defense. 4. Okay, gigantic military. We had 20 aircraft carriers, 500,000 troops over in Europe. We had large bodies of troops out in the Pacific. We had 4 assistant secretaries. Today we have 24, and we have our smallest military since. 24 assistant secretaries of defense getting budgets, and I mean, when I was a lieutenant colonel, this was a while back, but it was still growing then, and I had some. A guy who was an assistant secretary in sneakers. He puts his feet up on my boss's desk in his office, and I'm sitting in there. And my boss was a Vietnam Silver Star recipient, and at that time, and I was about to kill the guy, because it's like showed zero respect, because that's what you get here when you put some of these people there. And it doesn't mean that, obviously we follow our political, our civilian masters, our political masters. I got that. I'm not, but get people in there that have some respect for not only the uniform and the sacrifice, but also for the Constitution and the process and how we do things. So there's a lot to unpackage in that answer, but
sir, I've got another question here. Do we have time for one more?
Yeah, I got time.
Okay.
I'll stay until the top of the hour. I mean, I'm taking up your guys' time.
Oh, this is great, sir. This is one that's an uncomfortable question from Kay Lewis, but a real one. So, Miss Kay Lewis, I have a plebe and a prepster. My husband and I are also both grads. Is anyone looking into the curriculum at the prep school? My son shares his English assignments with me, and they are filled with woke propaganda. He had to analyze an essay. It is tough to read this, sir. about two gay guys where the affluent gay guy is envious of his partner's hard childhood in a foreign country and therefore pretends his partner's childhood is in town. How does that prepare young adults to be
Yeah.
lieutenants? Quite
Right.
a few
So
of the English S.
first of
This
all,
is
I want you to copy and paste that question. You can leave out the name. Copy and
okay.
paste that question and send it to me, please.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I want
Um,
that. I want that question, and please send that to me.
that's what we love
Um,
about you,
yeah,
sir.
this
Uh,
is insane. I mean, this is insane. You know, and so the prep school, okay,
mhm.
and a sessions command. So one of the things I talked to both Tata and Pete about was about a sessions command, right? A sessions command is a command inside of the U.S. Army, but we have it in all the services. Because I'm one of these guys. I mean, so I spent I don't know 12 years or maybe 13 years, 12 years as a flag officer. I only spent 8 months in the Army. So my time as a flag officer was joint or combined. And so I when I look at things, I look at the whole of our military because, I mean, if we're going to win, we're going to win together, and we're going to win with partners and strong allies, right? But this kind of ridiculousness, right? So um, is just this is a symptom of a much broader problem. That's why the Secretary of Defense had to call in, 800 admirals and generals to basically to school them that we got problems, folks. And these prep schools, oh my God, I mean, I feel so bad. I feel terrible. But believe me, you get me that, and those are the kinds of things that I can control. So when it gets back to that lesson that I tried to teach you all earlier, I can control that. You give me that information, I can control what I'm going to do with that information. And the first places I typically do is I may call up. So I probably will call up the head of the prep school before I, ream them from the top. I will try. It's like talking to a soldier before I talk to a superior, right? Go call the kid to the side and you tell them, hey, man, you got a problem here. If you don't, you need to fix it. And then you watch them. And if they don't fix it, then you go elsewhere and you fix it. I mean, we always try to fix the problem at the lowest level before we take it to the next level. But sometimes, we're past that right now. I mean, for them to be teaching that, right now under the leadership of this president and this secretary of war is insane. That means that they are giving the big middle finger to the leadership and to the chain of command. That's what that means to me.
Well
And
said,
that's
sir.
that's almost verbatim what I will tell the secretary, because I'm done with I say I'm beyond the nonsense stage of my life here, folks.
And this is kind of along the same line from Paul Ettinger, USMA class of 1980. As a former as a former inspector general, should or can the IG's office now be tasked with the trust but verify the 10 Secretary of War's initiatives put out today at all unit levels?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I do think that um, you also have to examine who are your appointed inspectors general. Okay. I don't know how many of you are following the problems that we're having inside of the JAG Corps of the United States Army. I don't know if we have any JAGs on here, but inside the JAG Corps, there's some really severe problems right now. I mean, serious cultural problems inside the JAG Corps. And you kind of go to say to yourself, well, look at what's happening in our judiciary. Look at what's happening in our legal profession, the lawfare, right? So why shouldn't the JAGs be anything
Hmm.
other than, what we're seeing in the rest of society, right? So the IGs are going to have to be checked as well. I hate to say it like that.
Yeah.
If I'm in with somebody and they're telling me that I can't trust anybody outside of my office, and I'm sitting there going, well, then, and I don't sit there and think about it. I tell them, fire them and bring in the next, the one man down or the one woman down, bring the next one in and figure it out if they can do the job.
So, sir, you're clearly a warfighter, and you have been in combat for 5 years. Every time I think about that, it's amazing. So that's kinetic warfare. There's an article I'm going to send you about we're good at killing the bad guy, but we're not really good at killing bad ideas. Sir, I think that your generation lived in the Cold War, but after that, we just kind of let our foot off the gas and recognizing non-kinetic warfare and bad ideas. In your opinion, what are some things that we could do to teach our leaders, get them realigned with what the U.S. Constitution is about, and tell them and teach them about the threats of ideology and how to kill bad ideas?
Yeah, I mean that I think that, Matt, is for all of you. That's the big question of the day, right? How do we take like a TikTok, right? I mean, TikTok is a social media platform owned by the Chinese. Trump's trying to figure something out. He says he's going to turn a portion of it over to, some American CEOs, and you got to kind of wonder, okay, who are those guys, right? Um, I think that the infiltration of the mind is a very, very serious application of warfare, and it's been going on for a long time in our country. The education department is part and parcel to it. The communist over time, communist agenda over time. It's the old adage of, give me a child for so many years, and and I'll shape them for an entire lifetime. So how do we get inside of this, right? And I do think that, I mean, one of the books I wrote was on fifth generation warfare.
Hmm.
That is the way that the Chinese have decided. So anybody that's read their book on irregular warfare, I actually met the two Chinese colonels that wrote that. I met them when I was at the.
This is the book right here,
when I was
folks.
at the yeah,
This one?
when I both those colonels right there. I met them
Wow.
when I was at the Navy War College because Zembrowski, Vice Admiral Zembrowski, was a great leader. He, was thinking outside the box, and he goes, "We need to bring these guys there," and he figured out a way to do it. And so I had an opportunity to listen to them and speak with them briefly. And the whole adage is about fighting without firing a shot. I mean, it's like simple, right? It's a Sun Tzu way of war kind of thing, right? I
Sir,
mean,
if I could add, the four we're studying this, especially with the DHCC, we used to, Duty Honor Country Commission, we used to meet weekly about this, is that the 45 communist goals are all non-kinetic warfare. Like you said, sir, it's preparing the battlefield. And most of the work they do is non-kinetic to subvert an institution or a country.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I could go into all kinds of issues right now on different things. I mean, how corporations are subverting us. The whole adage of, I mean, can we actually build a ship anymore, right? I mean, uh, this thing about artillery down at the 101st. Okay, have you heard this artillery down at the 101st? The Secretary of the Army, Dan Driscoll, was just on a talk show, and frankly, I was a little surprised that he said it because to me, that would be classified. It should be classified because it demonstrates a lack of readiness. But he said, like in a talk show, I think in the last 72 hours, that the artillery at Fort Campbell
Hmm.
in the 101st is
Missing a
it's
piece.
only 20% ready.
Yeah.
Okay, so 80% of the artillery in one of our elite, quote unquote, our elite, high end Army units, 80% of the artillery is not ready. So my thing is, okay, and I may send them a note here today because I just saw it only like a couple hours ago, that this just says everybody from the chief of staff of the Army all the way down to the battery commanders and including the support command down at Campbell needs to be relieved immediately. Immediately. If that's true, we have 80% of one of our best Army units, artillery, is incapable, not mission ready. That is so outrageous to me. So I'm like, so now, I mean, I just saw that this morning. That's another one of these things that I'm gonna dig into because I can. And that's a piece of information that, that's something that, frankly, I mean, if the Secretary of the Army said it, he said it on a large social media platform
Yep.
publicly. So that's number one. That's so that would be some guidance to him to say, hey, we got to be careful what we talk about. But the fact that you said it, there's a bigger issue in play. It's not about It's not about buying a $2 piece of equipment to fix a $2,000 piece of equipment. It's about the lack of leadership responsibility from the very top. Because you all know those USR reports, they come up.
Yes.
And that's how you go in and you argue. All of them go into the G3 of the Army, and all of them go over to the Secretary or the Chief of Staff, and the Chief of Staff reviews everybody that's C4. I know this for a fact. If you're C4 down to battalion level, Chief of Staff of the Army should know it. If he doesn't know it, then that's unsad.
So
okay?
we got
If you're
about
C3 or higher, that's a G3 response. I mean, there's so much that is at stake here, folks.
Yeah, exactly, Mike.
So we have time for one or two more questions, but before we do,
Okay.
I'm going to share screen a little bit here. Something, well, let's see here. Kind of as a way of showing, as a small token of appreciation, sir, we at the MacArthur Society would like to, well, we're going to send you this gift, okay? It's a MacArthur Society swag with your name embroidered on it, and from our partner at Authentically American there. And it's not a big deal, but it is to us. And when you do finish with us, we hope that you will wear this with pride and honor, because we are so grateful for your service to our country, and you're partnering with not necessarily the MacArthur Society, but in upholding the virtues of duty, honor, country. And for any of you who want a shirt like this, you can get it, but without the Lieutenant General Mike Flynn on it. We just launched a flash store. You can pre-order. Okay, these are quality items. Okay, they are pricey, and that benefits the MacArthur Society directly. If you order it, you can get it by Christmas. It's in your email. So, sir, it means a lot to us that you're here, and thank you so much. It's a small token of appreciation, and we're very grateful for you, sir. And there are a lot of questions. There must be 30 questions here. I did not get to all of them. I will ask this. Sir, what do you think about the change in leadership at West Point, if at all?
I think it happened yesterday.
What was that, sir?
It's like, and I do believe that there should be some consideration for the superintendent to be from another accession, like ROTC, and maybe you have your commandant as the as a West Pointer, that kind of thing. So you mix it up a bit, because we are, you guys don't know the stats like I do right now in terms of how particularly for commissioning sources and how far you get to where you're lieutenant colonel, and then all of a sudden, so there's that sort of, quote unquote good old boy network. But it also brings in a different philosophy too, right? And you'll find a connection to the rest of America. So anyway, let me just finish. Let me just leave you guys with this, and what I wrote down here while you were talking, Matt, is where do wars start, right? Where do wars start? And so they always start from the most unlikely of places, right? Everybody's looking at Ukraine and the Middle East, and wars always begin in the most unlikely places, and they start with a spark, right? And sometimes regional, sometimes it's a mistake. Somebody makes a mistake. Like I know for a fact that the Chinese leadership, if a Chinese vessel collides with a U.S. vessel at sea, that doesn't mean that was directed from China. That was directed from the head of the CCP. Sometimes mistakes are made, and what they'll do is they'll deal with that naval officer, the way the Chinese deal with mistakes. There's reporting now of a Russian submarine that might be down in the Mediterranean. I'm still checking on that. So it always happens. It's a nuclear sub. Still trying to confirm some of this information. But so where do wars begin? And this is what we have to. So we have to teach the intellectual components of that, the philosophical components of warfare, but also the idea about how do we win? I mean, that was sort of the secretary's big thing is winning. We will not be able to continue as a nation for another 250 years by participating in wars. Those days are over. Yeah. If we don't start winning wars, then we will not write the history. I don't care how strong our financial institutions are, because our financial institutions, they don't care about the Constitution. They care about their institution, right? Their ability to be able to continue, and they're operating globally. So I think if our allegiance to our country, and I believe it is with groups like this, is unshakable, then we need to act that way, and we need to put demands on our leaders. So whether it's the MacArthur Society or whatever group that you're part of, we've got to place greater demands on those that we put into office to lead this country. And I wish I could sprinkle fairy dust and change it overnight, but we're gonna I'm gonna tell you, these next couple of months, never mind these next few years, these next couple of months are gonna be
Pretty cool.
they're gonna be interesting. So my thing is tighten your bootstraps up there, because get ready, because it's like we always say, the enemy has a vote, and when the enemy is inside of your tent, they're not outside of the wire. They're inside of our tent. They're sitting there drinking our coffee right
Goodness. So thank you,
anyway,
sir. I'm going to hand it over to General Vallely, sir.
Okay.
General Flynn, Mike, we've been friends for quite a few years now, and I, for one, really thank you for your time today and your insightful analysis of what's happening in America and offering solutions. Love to have you back on again when we can schedule it, but we wish you well. And again, many thanks from the MacArthur Society.
Anytime, and God bless everybody. Thank you. See
Thank
ya.
you, sir. God bless you.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Hey, folks, thank you for staying on. We're very, very fortunate to have General Flynn this long. We had originally, he was only able to get us for 30 minutes. So
30 minutes,
yeah, so we're very fortunate. We do have a couple of other things. Typically at this point, we cut off and go just to an informal session. So if you all have to leave, we understand. We had over 300 registrants, folks. We started a year ago at about 20. Last month, we had about 220. Today, we had over 300 registrants. Cindy, I think we had over 200 actual attendees. We had 10 screens of about 25 each, 24 each. So that's pretty impressive. Thank you, every single one of you. And for those of you, I haven't mentioned it yet, but I'm the Vice President for Donor Relations, and I want to share some good news with you just very briefly. We've had very generous donors in the last couple of weeks. We had a $1,000 donation, a $5,000 donation, and a $120,000 donation, people. This is wonderful. It'll help us carry on a work of supporting, defending, and advocate for West Point's history, purpose, and the principles or virtues of duty, honor, country. Let's see here. So with that, thank you for all attending. I'm going to pass it over here to Jim Bowden, West Point class of 1972, to discuss briefly the Duty, Honor, Country Commission. Sir, you have the floor.
Okay, I'm talking in my car, so I can't see anything. I can't see you. I can't get any kind of reactions. So just jump in if somebody has a question or if you need to cut me off. So we briefed General Flynn, and we briefed Brigadier General Retired Tata, the Undersecretary of Defense, about 6 weeks ago. Since then, we've heard nothing. So today is the first time we've heard any feedback whatsoever from either of them. And what I gathered from it is that Secretary Hegseth just got the wave top, so he has not had a detailed briefing yet. And secondly, or more importantly, that General Tata seems to be chewing on it. That's my impression. So sometime tonight, when I get home, I will be writing an email to the leadership of STARS, CTG, and MacArthur recommending our next move, because we've been waiting to get some kind of feedback to find out if we're dead on arrival, if we're moving ahead, or if we're being moving ahead in part. Right. So
okay, Jim, we have a question from General Rod Bishop. General Bishop, sir.
Well, I didn't have a question, Matt, but just to what Jim's saying. Jim, what you're saying is spot on, at least from our sources. I had a fairly lengthy conversation on Sunday night with someone in that office high up in OSW, PNR, and he confirms exactly what you said. Yep, General Tata is supportive of the effort, thinking hard on it, but wants to visit the academies first, is what I was told.
That makes sense. Well, that's great. Thank you, General Bishop. Like I said, I'll put together an email tonight for the leadership, making a recommendation on what's next.
Great, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you, General Bishop. Thank you, Jim. Okay, now we're going to go over to Sam Thiessen to discuss the new board of directors and advisory boards. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Matt. We have a new set of bylaws, and with that, a new board of directors. We went down from I think we had 15 down to 9. The board of right now we've filled 7 of those positions. There are 3 permanent positions that on the board that is ex officio positions. I'm in one of them. And Bill Fletcher is in another as the chief of staff. And
legal advisor.
Legal advisor. Okay, there we go.
That's
right. As far as the bylaws say, and also Scott Shires, who is the CFO. So I'm a vice president, and Bill and Scott are also on the board. But then after that, we have General McInerney, Lieutenant General, retired, class of 59. We have Tony Lentini, class of 71. So that brings us to 5. We have 2 new board members, class of 67, Dick Klein, who is on this call, and also another new board member and my classmate, class of 73, Charlie Rash, and Charlie's on here as well. So we got 2 other positions to fill, and we'll be discussing that at our next board meeting on the 15th of October.
Thank you, Sam.
And another item, Sam, we're filling out and starting this month also, Board of Advisors.
That's right. We've got a board of advisors. We had a board of advisors. We really haven't dissolved it, but we haven't started it up or activated it either. Yeah, and we'll be working on that and looking for folks to fill those positions. So back to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, sir. And the Board of Visitors, for those of you who here in this meeting are engaged, if you think you have something that you can offer, which, other than your engagement here, reach out to us, mission@MacArthurSociety.org, mission@MacArthurSociety.org, because while the board is finite, board of directors is finite at 9, the board of advisors has a lot more flexibility, which gives MacArthur Society leadership great resources to draw from, whether it's a connection like you saw with Undersecretary of War Personnel Readiness Tata, or maybe just some insight in terms of warfare, kinetic warfare, non-kinetic, that we may not possess. So if you think you have something to add in that context, please email mission@MacArthurSociety.org. I also wanted to say again to everybody, thank you for sending your questions to the moderator, Cindy. I've never seen so many questions. If we have people raising their hand, when you've got someone like this, it could really send the entire conversation off track. And not that General Flynn would ever embarrass anybody. He's a class act, but thank you for doing that and for working with us. And I'm sorry, there were so many questions. We did not get to all of them. Colonel Prince, sir, you have a question?
Actually, a quick comment. Greetings all. And I don't know how many have seen this, but the next Board of Visitors meeting, West Point Board of Visitors meeting, is November 3rd, and it's in Washington, D.C. That's a tremendous advantage. D.C. is a lot easier to get to than West Point. When Cindy and I went back in 23, they held it at the Library of Congress. It hasn't been published officially yet in the Federal Register, but I would urge everybody that can go to that to go to it. We had 11 or 12 of us last time. that made the trip to West Point. I think that made a tremendous impression.
Absolutely.
So stay advised. I'm sure the leadership, the society leadership, will be urging people to go to that. It's very important. It's very worthwhile, and more is better. Congratulations to everybody. One final point, all I've been hearing since I stepped down is how much better everything's working since I left.
Not true. Bill, for the society, I want to thank you for your time, and
Amen.
you were a real leader and at the time, and because of that, we're proceeding into the future, and we have a great
right.
outlook for MacArthur Society, but a lot has to do with what you did. Thank you, Bill.
Yeah. Yeah, and to echo General Vallely, you know, when Colonel Bill Prince got on and raised his hand, I thought Elvis is in the building. For those of you who don't know, Colonel Prince was the president of MacArthur Society and took us to a bunch of old grumpy men complaining to a bunch of old grumpy men complaining with a few classy people, Dr. Martha, who were making a difference, And Bill gave and served relentlessly. And at our next board meeting, Paul, I'm going to move that we create a new email, elvis@macarthursociety.org for Colonel Prince.
Okay. What's next?
Okay, Colonel Scott, sir.
Hey, Matthew, to piggyback on what Colonel Prince said, for our Board of Visitors meeting on the 7th of August, our vice chairman arranged to make sure that was live streamed. So it was on a YouTube channel, over 600 individuals logged in to observe that session.
Wow.
Given the sensitivity of some of the things that were mentioned, we asked Cindy to make sure she was recording it, which she did, because within an hour of that board adjourning, they took that video off of their YouTube channel, but it's on our website now. Transparency is an incredibly powerful disinfectant.
Yes,
so I just share that with you in case you want to do that on 3 November.
That's a great idea. Thank you, sir. Dave Cunningham, USMA 74, sir.
There's no question that the Board of Visitors is important, and I know we don't have any direct way to ask them questions and such. I've been following their minutes for quite some time. The last meeting, it only took them a month to post the minutes, and then another month for the chief of staff to get back and told me they've done so.
We'll be quicker next time.
Sir, what I'm wondering is if one of you all would please invite Ms. Duckworth to the next meeting. It has been some years since she's been in attendance.
Well, Mr. Cunningham, you bring up a good point. General Flynn is on the board, and listen, we should ask him to ask some questions. So if you have some questions for everybody here, if there's a question or some questions you want asked at the next Board of Visitors, send it to mission@macarthursociety.org. We'll compile some of those, put together the most relevant one or two that we think he could answer. So thank you, Mr. Cunningham. Jim Wyman, sir.
Yes, to echo what Dave Cunningham said, the Board of Visitors meeting last year in November was in the Jefferson Library, and they had a full contingent of audiovisual people in the back and big sets of equipment in the back corner of the room, if you remember, and they didn't record anything. And I don't even know if they live streamed it. I don't believe they did. So out at Barth Hall at Camp Buckner, there's no reason why they can't put enough equipment to record it. Even one little camera or one or two smartphones will record it, but they didn't. And likewise, when they delay these minutes and so forth, I also asked about that, Mr. Cunningham. And when they delay these minutes, we're all busy. We tend to forget it. And then after time, it gets obscured. It's the same stuff what they did with the Kennedy assassination. If they delay it enough years, it disappears. So yeah, I'll prepare questions. A great idea. Who was there? Matt, I guess that was yours. Great idea. I'll do it. Thanks.
I'll give Paul the credit.
We need to get Dave Jackson up too, just to discuss some of our planned programs and events.
Yeah, in fact, Jim, what we could do, Jim Wyman, is maybe ask the Board of Visitors to publish the minutes within 1 week instead of a month, and then get the minutes approved in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and this is 2025. Why don't they post it on YouTube too?
Um, there you go. Okay, Mr. Jack Collins, Sergeant, Master Sergeant, hooah, sir.
Yes, thanks, Matthew. I would like to solicit the folks here. I need some help. I'm local to West Point. Previously, I asked this with a very heavy heart because of the situation with Charlie recently. Charlie's Turning Point representatives here in the Northeast have approached me about setting up a chapter at West Point, and I've offered to try to assist them as best I can. However, my contacts at West Point, I've got I don't think I'm going to be able to get anywhere.
Mr. Collins, I love your idea. Email us mission@MacArthurSociety.org. Honestly, that was one of my prayers, that we could have a TPUSA chapter. I'm a big Charlie
Jack,
Kirk fan. Yeah,
Matt,
so
let me
email us, and if you
intercede a little
have
here,
what was
Matt.
that, Paul?
Let me intercede just a little bit. I tried to get Charlie to do that about 3 or 4 years ago when I went to the opening of his facility down in Phoenix, because I was on his original board. But he said it was too hard to do. He's focusing on the other universities and colleges and high schools. And he wanted to do it because, he did want to go to West Point. But anyhow, we can try again, that's for sure. That's what we should do. But he was reluctant. He never thought he could get anywhere into the academies to do that.
Yes, sir. Maureen Bannon is on the Board of Visitors. She's a grad.
Yeah.
She worked there as a sports director in 17 to 19. If anybody knows how to get a hold of her, I think she might be the way in. But I will send Matthew. I'll send you all the information of what I've done and what where we'd like to go. But I'd like to try and move that forward if we can. Thank you.
I have her contact information.
Wow. Hey, Tom Oakley, thank you, Tom. Jack Collins, thank you for recommending that, sir. Appreciate that. Okay, John Lucas, class of 1969, sir.
I just had a quick question. If someone, particularly anyone that has knowledge of AOG goings on, can give us an update on the imbroglio involving the Thayer Award and Tom Hanks. I've lost track of the current status of that.
Paul, do you have something on that? Or Dick Klein, you want to answer
All
that?
I know is rejected, but I haven't heard anything more.
He has, just to add, maybe Dick has more on this, but it has not been revoked, just the ceremony. That's my understanding.
I've got a little bit on that. It was said that there was a discussion between McDonald, the chairman of the AOG, and Tom Hanks, and they decided amongst themselves, between themselves, that this was not the best time politically, was the way it was described, for the award to be presented at West Point, that the atmosphere just wasn't right. My question is, if the reason for not awarding it was based on a political consideration, then was the final selection not well enough vetted to eliminate any political aspect from it? The way it's done, a number of names are thrown up there. There are probably 24 names that they start out with, and there is a committee of about 13 people in the AOG who are advised. Most are advisors, some are directors. They're grads just like you and me. They're random guys, some elected by their class, some elected by their societies, some elected at large. They go through these names, have discussions, take a vote, and eliminate it. Eliminate a few. Then they'll take another round and eliminate a few more until they get down to it. So on its surface, at least, the selection process should be very objective. I still kind of wonder how they got to Tom Hanks if it's objective. I'm sure it was like we recognize Robert E. Lee because he was a great commander, not because he ever owned slaves. They're recognizing Tom Hanks. It must have been like this for the good things he did in depicting soldiers, not what his own personal views are. That's the only solution I can think of on that. But that's where it was, and they did not say that it had been revoked. It just said that it would not be presented in the fall, and it may be done in the spring sometime.
I appreciate that. Okay, Dick Klein.
Yeah, three things. One is this selection of the recipient of the Thayer Award is somewhat cloaked in secrecy. It's like a group of people, some 13 or so, disappear behind a curtain, and until white smoke appears, they don't come out and announce it. And it's somewhat unsettling that that's the way it's turned into. That's how Obama got the Thayer Award, and it's a little troubling. Secondly, I wanted to say that Mike Alverson and I have reached out to the AOG president, and on the 9th of October, Mike and I will have a Zoom call with two members of the AOG board of directors in an effort to try and open communications between us and remove some of the anger and frustration that seems to exist between the two organizations.
Excellent.
Lastly, I just want to say, I don't want to be a naysayer and throw a bomb in from the peanut gallery, but getting a Turning Point or a club or organization established at West Point on the heels of the disassembling of all the other boards, of clubs, with the exception of one or two, is going to be a very, very dicey timing issue. And that if we want to do it, we probably ought to very carefully bide our time a little bit until the aftermath of disassembling all the other clubs has died down. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. And I thank you for all that. And for those of you who don't know Dick Klein, he is our in-state ambassador. Dick, you're going to do a great job there. Thank you for that. I will politely disagree with you on one point of the TPUSA. Turning Point USA is all about the U.S. Constitution and the first 10 amendments, and it's open to anybody, whereas the other clubs were discriminatory and they were divisive. So the TPUSA plan, but that's my opinion, and I'm a big Charlie Kirk fan and his memory. So with that, hey, our next thing on the agenda is Bill Fletcher. So thanks, Bill, for waiting. Sir, you have the floor.
Okay, we have a couple of points. First off, just to remind everybody, we're a 501c3 nonprofit corporation. We are nonpartisan. We don't represent any particular person. We do represent policies. So for the folks who make donations or are interested in making donations, they are tax deductible. And like I said, we don't we don't represent any particular person, only policies of duty, honor, country, and merit. So in that regard, we put together, I'm trying to put together a ballot initiative. For those who are confused about how the AOG ballot works, it's really not an election, it is a selection. Folks put in their names and resumes and they send it to the AOG, who makes the selection. And so the ballot that comes out for the AOG elections is not a ballot. You can't really do anything other than vote for the person or not vote at all. So what I tried to do this year was get a slate of directors and advisors for those positions for the AOG. That was a lot harder than I thought it would be. And I thought it was going to be really hard. So I was even surprised at some of the roadblocks that I found. However, working with the folks at the AOG, sometimes nicely and sometimes not so nicely, we actually did get our potential nominees approved initially by the AOG. Didn't get it done in time. That had to be submitted by September 18th. And we had to have 1,000 signatures on our petition. So the first process was to get our nominees approved and then 1,000 signatures on a petition. all by September 18th. That was impossible to do. However, I did discover that there is a no, not earlier than date for this. So after the ballot in November, when the selection is finished, we will republish our petition with the nominees who have already been approved by the AOG so that we can start to gather our 1,000 signatures so that our slate of candidates can get on a ballot and there will actually be an election, not just a selection. So, assuming that we can get 1,000 signatures, that only gets us on the ballot. That doesn't get anybody elected. So assuming that we can get the 1,000, then you got to talk to your friends, your classmates, any West Point grads you know, so that they can look at our selection of folks. This is not to upset or overturn the AOG, but it's to penetrate. General Flynn said, don't work from the inside. We have to work from the inside, but we got to get there from the outside. So that's what we're trying to do. You'll pay attention to the MacArthur Society website. All the information will be coming up after the election in November, selection in November. We're going to redo this, and we're actually going to have some folks on the ballot next year if we can get 1,000 signatures.
Bill,
Okay,
let me
thank
ask
you,
you a
Bill.
question. Do the other
Yes.
nominees have to have 1,000 signatures at the
No,
AOG?
no. Well, no, anybody who
They are
wanted to.
recommended by the nominating committee.
Yeah, anybody who's not been selected by the nominating committee. So, if there are 6 director slots, anybody who's interested in the director slot has a bunch of hoops to jump through to get their information to the AOG. The AOG then sorts through those folks and they select their 6 people. They don't select 12 for 6 slots. They select 6 for 6 slots. And that's why there's really no election. It's merely a selection.
Selection, yeah.
Well,
So-
there's an election of sorts before their name gets put on that ballot. The people, for example, regional, there are 6 guys that come from one from each of the 6 regions.
Right.
You would be amazed at how hard they campaign. They send out bios, they send out letters, they solicit support, they solicit endorsements and everything else for several months before their name ever gets on there. That's just to get their name on into consideration from their region. It's a real fight within each region.
Well, now that's the board of advisors.
Class appoints their own.
Right.
During the time period when their class comes into the zone to have a representative, the class selects them. So, it's there. That's where the selection comes from. Although once they get on the thing, it's just an approval by the majority of the graduates to elect them.
Right. Yeah. So no, Fred's right. I mean, there's no popular vote to select it. I mean, let's be real. There would be chaos if, there was just an unlimited number of folks who put their things in for an election. So I don't criticize them for that portion of it, but to get an outside ballot approved, the conditions were pretty tough. And it's very discouraging unless you're a retired lawyer like I am and got time to work through it all. And I had terrific help from Cindy and from Laura Perry to put it all together because it's a lot of work to gather all that information and submit it to the AOG. And they were sometimes helpful and sometimes not helpful, but we got everybody finally approved. And I mean, the real impact is the board of directors, because that's where the decisions are made. There are 6 advisor slots open out of 54 every year. The directors are 15. It's 5 of 15. So if we can get our director slots approved, if we could get 5 in, we'd have 1/3 control of the board in one election. The Air Force Academy guys, they did very well with amendments, but their process was not as onerous as West Point's.
Hey, Bill, thank you. Hey, I've got to jump. I'm going to hand it over to Colonel Sam Thiessen. Sir, Sam, the floor is yours.
Oh, great. Sure. Thank you. General Bishop, you've had your hand up a while.
No, just 2 real quick comments. Bill, love that you guys are doing what you're doing with your AOG. Yes, you're right. Our process is not as onerous. We got all 5 candidates selected out of 16 who ran. Pretty amazing. Tells me that the majority of grads are with us. The other thing I really quickly wanted to comment on was Dick Klein's words about Turning Point USA. Stars went down that road about 3.5 years ago. I had shared a stage with a chapter president out of for Turning Point USA out of CSU, I believe it was, Colorado State. And I was amazed at just how in tune to the Constitution and American values these guys were. And when he was done, I raised my hand and said, what's it take to set up a Turning Point USA chapter at the service academies? And the audience laughed. And the speaker said, the general's not kidding. They're coming after our military. And so we went down that road, had, I think, 2 Zooms with the Western director for Turning Point USA. Unfortunately, in 2021, 2022, the atmosphere was not right, and it has to come from the organization itself, has to come from the schools themselves, the cadets. And we couldn't get anybody at the Air Force Academy that was willing to stand up and raise their hand and say, yeah, I'll lead this chapter in that environment. We're starting it again today. I think most of you know that Charlie Kirk was on the Air Force Academy Board of Visitors.
Right. Yeah.
We had a Zoom with him in June, and we asked him about that. And he said, he didn't want to come across, the modest guy that he is, he didn't want to come across as pushing his organization. He said, well, let me get my feet on the ground. We'll work through it for about a year, and then we'll see. Well, now that he is deceased, we've engaged with our Board of Visitors again because we'd like their push, and they're obviously pretty well connected with Turning Point USA, given Charlie's attendance on the Board of Visitors with them. And they will fully support, our Board of Visitors will fully support that. But again, we need the request to come from at least 3 cadets, is what we've been told.
Okay, thanks, Rod.
Thank you, Rod. Dave Bell, you're up next.
Yeah, the conversation about the clubs at West Point and the diversity groups. I had a conversation with a classmate of mine who is involved in a field force. These are the folks that are out there talking to prospective cadets. And I forwarded a copy of a slide presentation that they are currently using to a few people on here. I know Cindy has it. She and I have traded some comments. Those clubs still exist. Now, whether they are active or not, I can't comment. However, in presentations that are being made to prospective cadets today, the current slide presentation, which I think is 16 or 17 slides, on slide number 15, under extracurricular activities, in the bottom right-hand corner, list all of those clubs, including the race and sex engineering clubs, the Women's Engineering Society, Hispanic Engineering Society, Black Engineers, as well as the LGBTQ club. So I don't know that the clubs are meeting, but they clearly have not updated the slide deck, and prospective cadets are being told that those clubs exist.
Okay, thank you.
That's my understanding as well.
I'm sorry, can I jump in from the academy real quick?
Sure. Yeah, Tom?
I apologize. Hey, David, this is Tom Oak with the academy. Hey, thank you for bringing that to your attention. I can confirm to you those clubs do not exist, but I'll look into the slide you're referring to. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, and you're on the general staff there, aren't you? Well,
I think he heard you say.
Okay, that's okay. Charlie Rash, one of our new board members of the MacArthur Society, my classmate. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I had a question about the signatures that have already been gathered on the thing about the board of directors at West Point. And are those still valid, or are people going to have to re-sign? Because I had a lot of my classmates sign based upon my passing out that information.
No, that's a good point. No, we have to start over again. We have to reinvent the wheel. So I'll republish the petition with all the names. But because everybody's been approved, we shouldn't have any issues with it. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to confirm in writing from them. And they were good about this. I mean, like, you know, they were they were making me follow all the rules, and I didn't have to like the rules, but we have to follow them.
Right.
So to correctly do this, the nominees have all been approved. I can now publish the petition, and we'll redo it in December with 0 signatures and start from the beginning.
Okay, I'll put it out again. I had a bunch of my friends sign up.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. Well, and then we'll start publicizing it again beforehand. It was one of the reasons why I didn't really make any publishing issues about it before, because as the rules state, you can't publish the petition and get signatures until the nominees have been approved by the AOG. Now, I don't have to think that makes sense, because I have to the petitioner has to verify that everybody's qualified to be elected in the position they've been put forth. But that's their rules, and they own the rules. If we get to control the board, we could change those rules and make it easier for more participation from folks who are not part of the inner circle. For 2 seconds on the soapbox, for those who are not aware, because I didn't care, I didn't pay any attention to that stuff, there's a real closed club. Okay, it is. And if you're not part of it, you're not part of it. And my group is very, very close. It's probably a group of 10, for 900 graduates. And they basically control everything that our class does, and the DG nominations and all that sort of stuff. And they have 0 interest in outside input. I'm not saying the AOG is that way, but it's pretty close. So
Thanks, Bill.
Right, thanks,
Thanks.
Bill.
Yep. And thanks, Charlie. Dave Jackson, another classmate. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, Dave Jackson. I'm part of the team that's developing plans and programs for MacArthur Society, along with Jim Wyman and Derek Reiki. Couple things that we're planning, and we need help from anybody that's listening. We're looking at meetups at various locations for sporting events. The first national one, so to speak, is the Army-Navy game. We're looking for someone who can coordinate locally, recognizing that the society will fund all this. We're also looking to expand the society into local branches. We're looking at Miami, Dallas, DC area, and maybe even West Point as our starting points. But if there's any other interest in any other cities or states, let us know. Contact me via the missions on the website, missions email. We're looking at a number of other things which are just in the basic outline right now, teaching military ethics, some alumni networking application similar to GradLink, some mentorship between either cadets or young grads and the older folks. Those are just some of them. They could work at the local level or at the national level. Anybody have any other ideas on what the society could or should get involved in? Contact me through the mission at MacArthurSociety.org. That's all I've got, Sam.
Thanks, Dave. You've done a great job.
Yeah,
With really good ideas. Sam, we probably ought to cut it off, I think, unless there's something else.
One more question, General. We got Tony or point to make. Tony, go ahead.
Yeah, one thing, this is for Charlie. A member of my class mentioned our slate without naming us and just trashed it. And I sent a polite note to the entire class to basically say, no, this is a MacArthur Society slate. You could read everything that we're about on our website. and my class would not run it. So there is a huge problem among individual classes as well. You can criticize us, but you can't let somebody else speak.
Yeah. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you. Back to you, General. Go ahead.
Okay, well, listen, thank you everybody for attending today. Great turnout, and we really appreciate General Flynn taking the time. And I think our next meeting, we've asked Lieutenant General Rod Bishop to be our speaker. I think we have him lined up. Cindy, the date is the
30 October.
30 October, yeah. So we'll get an announcement out to you. But if you have any other ideas, please send it to us. We're growing, but we're doing well. I can't believe the expansion just in a very short period of time that we've been able to see. But thank you all for your participation. Good luck. Go Army.
Be Navy.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.